A couple days ago, this account on Twitter, Kaiju number 14, tweeted out, Godzilla x Kong Supernova star Delroy Lindo says the producers wanted to make the film's human characters as engaging and compelling as possible. Quote, "We worked to flesh out my character and make the character as humanly relatable as possible because they very smartly understand in order to make these big CGI films work, the human element also has to be compelling for audiences." Now, this is a very normal thing to say about a movie, you know? For the most part, actors like to play characters that are interesting and, human. If you're a Godzilla fan, you're probably thinking one of two things. One, the more reasonable, hey, they've said this multiple times for prior movies, whether it be Godzilla 2014, or King of the Monsters, or Godzilla vs. Kong, or X Kong. For all those, they kind of say the exact same thing, where it's like, guys, we swear the human characters are good this time. It's sort of a jaded response if you're a Godzilla fan. But on the other end of the spectrum, there's people that straight up don't like this. And you may be thinking, well, what do you mean they don't like it? That they don't like the idea of good human characters? No, they don't like the idea of there being characters in Godzilla movies. Like, they don't want there to be humans in these movies. Like, the idea of caring about having good characters in a giant monster movie has had people just crashing out on Twitter, and we're going to talk about it. This response to that original tweet is from TheRedHeadHenry, and he says, "No, every future Godzilla film should have zero human cast. Put it in the perspective of the monsters 100% of the movie. I don't care about some random human and how they are researching monsters or are connected to the story. Fuck that shit. Give me giant monsters wrecking shit." Here's some more. "Yeah, sure, the human element also has to be compelling for audiences, but that can't mean they cut back on kaiju-related things. We need this movie to be Godzilla-oriented first and foremost, in my opinion. Great human elements is a nice bonus, sure, but come on now." Another person said, "Focus on monsters, not people. Too many films focus on humans." And this person says, "Their franchise revolves around the MonsterVerse. WTF are we doing here? Leave the human stuff for Toho's Godzillaverse. They finally perfected it, even though it took 50 years. I'm fine with accepting the American version is known for the action scenes. Don't complicate it." I don't want to be redundant and just keep reading off tweets like this, but this is what the entire comment section was on this post. "The worst mistake in kaiju productions is too much time for humans. We really don't care about the humans. ... Less people, more kaiju. Yet, even more. We don't care about humans. That's the point of kaiju movies. Geez, I want a Godzilla movie with no humans." It genuinely hurts me reading these, because it's like, I don't think you can call yourself a fan and say things like, "We don't care about humans, that's the point of kaiju movies." Like, it's so stupid. Alright, look, I'm gonna try to not crash out on camera. We're gonna talk about this and really go in depth and why this mindset is just so obnoxious to me. And it's one of those things where it's like, you should want better movies with good human characters if you are a fan of these movies, right? So we're going to go all the way back to 1954, where the original Godzilla film came out, right? I've said it before, and at this point I'm sure if you're a viewer of my channel, you are sick of me talking about it, but it's fact. The original 54 Godzilla was about post-war trauma, about Hiroshima, Nagasaki, the Lucky Dragon 7 incident that happened, and it's about grief. It's about how Japan had to deal with those bombings as a nation, while not directly making a movie about it because they were under very strict censorship from the American government at the time. You could say deservedly so, I would say so as an American, knowing the history and who they were allied with in World War II, but that's besides the point. The three main characters in that movie, Emiko, Serizawa, and Ogata, they are the heart of that Godzilla movie. They are what make it work. Godzilla in that film is the metaphor, and he causes a lot of the destruction, but those three characters, they give the movie meaning. Now we're gonna just flash forward all the way to Shin Godzilla in 2016. That entire movie is also about the humans. There are some phenomenal Godzilla scenes, don't get me wrong, but in Shin Godzilla, the human bureaucracy is the entire film. That is the metaphor there. If you take out Godzilla, the movie doesn't work. Godzilla works because the humans are so ineffective at actually stopping him. And of course, the one that I'm sure everyone's just yelling at me to talk about right now, Godzilla -1.
降参の戦争は終わりましたか？降参の戦争は終わりましたか？Ano na tissue?
Godzilla Minus One has the best human story, I think, in any Godzilla movie ever. Straight up. I say that as a lifelong fan of the franchise, someone who's seen every movie multiple times. I just think that it's so well written, and I'm convinced that anyone that's saying, oh, these movies shouldn't have human elements, humans don't matter, they're always bad, I'm convinced you haven't seen Godzilla Minus One. Like, that movie is built upon the foundation of a strong human story. The kaiju moments are the payoff. And with anything, if you just have nothing but giant monsters fighting 24/7, then you're not going to have much of a plot or really anything to focus on. You're going to get something like Godzilla Final Wars, a movie that I love, and it's jam-packed with giant monster fights and human fights and all types of stuff, but it's also like, I want a good story in there. And that movie, it's fun, it's schlocky, it has a lot to like about it, but it's like, I very much would like my giant monster movies to have good characters in them, because that's what a movie does. Like, at that point, if you just want nothing but giant monster battles, just go look up like fan-made animations, or go watch like supercuts of all the fight scenes over the years of all the giant monsters fighting each other. Like, that, to me, it seems like that's more what you care about than the movies themselves. Let's talk about the MonsterVerse now, because there was that one tweet where that guy said, let's let Toho, they can actually try and tell good stories, while the Americans can just make, mindless schlock. Now, say what you want about Ford Brody in the 2014 Godzilla movie, he is hated by fans, and the film tries to kind of ground him in that, sense of awe and scale. Like, he is the focal point of almost everything in that movie. There's even more human elements with like Joe Brody passing, which a lot of people hate as well, but I still think that if you try to ignore the marketing that happened with that movie, it's still a very effective death scene. It's still very sad and emotional, and it makes sense for Ford Brody to kind of go off and do his own thing, and to kind of progress the plot in that way. That film at least tried to have good human story, and it had a little bit too much emphasis on the humans, but I wouldn't say it's like the worst human story in the world. Now, King of the Monsters 2019, a movie that I actually like a lot. I know it's kind of mixed now for some reason. It's either you love it or you hate it. Personally, I'm not a big fan of the human stuff. I'm really not. I think that there's way too many humans, and none of them are compelling in any way. But it proves the issue that it isn't there's too many humans. It's bad writing. Bad writing is the biggest problem with that whole movie. It is very poorly written, and it suffers as a result of that. And I think that if you get a writer who's actually good at their job, you will have good human stories. And even in movies that I think have poor human storylines, like Godzilla vs. Kong, you still have elements of it that work, like the parts with Gia and Kong. I think that the silent connection there really worked because of all the human emotion that you see, and it works to humanize Kong as a result. The best human storylines in these movies tie in with the monster stuff, and not just like, oh, we're researchers tracking down Godzilla. Instead, it either humanizes or vilifies the monster, and in this sense, Gia and Kong's connection just makes Kong way more likable and way more like you want to root for him. You really do. I'm actually very optimistic about the screenplay for Godzilla x Kong Supernova for a variety of reasons, but one of them is that the writer David Callahan, one of the writers, he worked on Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which I think is a very solid movie, and it has a lot of great emotional moments, and if he can kind of carry that over into this movie, we'll be golden. So getting back to the general, vibe of why do these fans think they want no humans in these movies? Frankly, I think it just comes down to the fact that they are watching these movies for giant monsters, and that's it. Say what you want about that. Personally, I think that is a terrible mindset to have when watching a movie of, I only want one big thing, and that's endless destruction and chaos. And it's like, having no humans in a Godzilla movie would be extremely boring. 10 minutes of a giant monster fight is so fun. I do not want that for 2 hours. Like, that would be fucking hell. It really would. It reminds me of Man of Steel, with how that final battle felt like it went on for about like 30 minutes, and it was just endless destruction and chaos, and it was just like, when is this gonna end? There's no stakes, there's no rhythm, there's no tension, there's no downtime, and it's like, you need to have people for pacing. And you straight up can't have a giant monster movie without humans. I really don't think you can. Unless they're like talking, or you have like speech bubbles, and we know that Godzilla movies have already tried that, and it was not good.
Your folks will get kind of worried. Won't they?
I don't think so. They're hardly home any time at all.
I think that it's fine to not have human characters if it's like a comic run. So for example, like Godzilla in Hell mostly works. It's pretty much just Godzilla, but you can't do that for a $200 million theatrical production. Like, you just can't. You need to have human characters to guide the story. That is how filmmaking works. I don't know. To me, it's just one of those things where it's like, I get being frustrated at these movies having bad human storylines every now and then. I really do. I get that. But I think that wanting to not have any humans is counterintuitive to everything. It really is. So now I wanted to talk about this dude, TheRedHeadHenry. This guy had a massive meltdown after his tweet where he was being called out and ratioed and just getting completely cooked in the replies because people reasonably disagreed on his take that, you know, these movies should have 0 human casts. And from here, he went on a bit of a crash out. He had this bizarre, unhinged response that I will go into and read right now. Just want to say, of course, these are his words, not mine. Here it is. I've inadvertently stumbled upon a disgusting zoophilia group of people embedded within the Godzilla fandom. These individuals, based on their profiles, are young gay/trans men with unstable emotional/mental issues. Be careful with what fandom you associate with, especially if you are young or have young family/friends who are impressionable. I thought the Dragon Ball fandom was bad. I bet the Sonic fandom is worse. Now, I will say this. I do think that there are some real bad actors in the Godzilla fandom. I have called them out on this channel right here. There's a video on this channel called The Godzilla Degenerates. Go watch that. But my issue with TheRedHeadHenry's tweet here is that he has no evidence whatsoever. He's just saying, like, throwing out all these buzzwords and blaming gay and trans fans of Godzilla for his terrible take getting shit on. And what this is, if we're being honest, this is just bigoted deflection. He is lashing out in this very kind of like cowardly way because he was criticized, and now it's like, oh, it's the woke mob coming for me. It's like, no, you were just being an idiot. He went from, I want more monster fights, to the fandom is full of mentally ill LGBT people corrupting others. Save the children.
Oh, won't somebody please think of the children?
It would be one thing if he actually had evidence to back this up and to show chat logs or show replies or anything. Granted, I do think he's handling it a bit wrong, even if he did have evidence, but still, there's nothing. He's just saying this in a very empty way with no screenshots, no proof, nothing. He's just trying to write off Godzilla fans as being literal animal fuckers. It is dangerous rhetoric, and I think it really shows like a deeper rot that's present in fandom spaces, especially when someone feels challenged on their beliefs, to just immediately resort to ad hominem attacks. It's like, what are we doing, man? So to wrap everything up, I think that this entire thing is just so stupid. It's like, look, if you want more monster action, that's completely fine, but you have to stop pretending that human characters are the problem, when in actuality, it's just bad writing, and you should be encouraging, not harassing, screenwriters into doing a better job with telling good stories. The Godzilla franchise has always been about human characters reacting to these giant monsters, and how they affect their world and what they stand for and all types of stuff like that. That is the franchise, and if you don't like that, then you don't like Godzilla. I really do think that this is a vocal minority. I think that most people disagree with this take, I hope, and that -1 kind of proved that, and that some of the other MonsterVerse films that do have better character elements have been praised in the past before by these same people, I'm sure, I hope. So let me know what you think down below in the comments. I'm very curious to see what you have to say. This is sort of an off-the-cuff video. I normally script everything, so I wanted to kind of experiment, see how this works. This is normally my live stream setup, and I figured, let's give this a shot. Now, one thing I will say is that I haven't live streamed in a minute because I recently got a puppy, so she has been a lot, a handful. So I just wanted to kind of let her settle in before I commit to streaming more consistently again. So maybe next month. Who knows? Either way, I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. Thank you to the channel members. I'm Cole McCormick. You're watching Firewood Media, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.